Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Dave Allen versus Arslanbek Makhmudov fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. You can request any kind of combat sported kind of related content, and I will try my best to get it out there for you guys. And I appreciate all the support in which I've had with it already, and the link will be in the description. Thank you very much, and let's get straight into this one now. And of course, this is kind of the big opportunity in Dave Allen's career, and perhaps his last big opportunity, to be honest, because everybody knows Dave Allen's career in British boxing hasn't always been the kind of highlight career in which heavyweights kind of dream of, but he's always been able to just get himself back into these big spots and these good positions. And I bet Eddie Hearn never would have thought years ago that he would have been promoting a Dave Allen main event again. And again, trying to push him to fight Deontay Wilder. Again, if you had said that to him a few years ago, or even just, about a year ago, would have really, really shocked Eddie Hearn, because there has been plenty of fights in which Dave Allen has shown a lack of care and just a lack of discipline. He's, gone out, drank, partied before fights, and, really just not trained for fights at all. And if he just doesn't care, he doesn't get up for it. And that's just always kind of been the main problem with Dave Allen. He's always kind of been the guy who has always had that ability, and he's always been able to get good opportunities off of that ability and be able to get kind of the big win in which he, needs to just keep himself around in his career. But he does have, plenty of off moments, like I say, where he's just not giving 100%. Now, though, he does look in great shape, and probably, come when he weighs in, it probably will be the best shape and the best condition in which we have seen Dave Allen in. It seems like Jamie Moore has been doing an excellent job in training, Dave Allen, and he seemed to be able to kind of find something that works and find a way to motivate Dave into carry on going and to actually keep pushing and keep training. And like I say, he looks in great shape, and it will, I think, probably be the best mindset in which we've seen Dave Allen come into a fight with. And of course, this is probably the biggest moment of his career, realistically. I mean, he's had some big fights in his career, of course, fighting the likes of, Dillian White and, other top contenders as well. But he has had some big moments, but this one, in front of his home crowd, being the main focus, I think probably is, like I say, the kind of big main moment in his career. I mean, of course, he's coming off probably one of his biggest KOs against Johnny Fisher, where, you know, I I probably would have said that if he'd not been able to get the knockout, and if he would have lost that fight, he probably would have gone on to retire, Dave Allen. So again, to be able to get that big KO where Johnny Fisher was the favourite, where Johnny Fisher was, the home fighter, he was the guy of all the fans cheering him on, and then for Dave to go out there and do that in a rematch in which he definitely deserved, again, was a very impressive thing to see. But I feel like there is going to be a kind of clear step up and difference in level between somebody like a Johnny Fisher, who hasn't, had a very tough test before in his career and hasn't really felt anybody who was able to, distribute power onto himself and was able to get through, Johnny Fisher's own power, and was able to make Johnny Fisher feel a bit nervous. That was, that kind of version of Johnny Fisher, whereas Dave has been able to go and fight some other top guys in the past. But like I say, now I think he is being kind of thrown in the deep end a bit here against Makhmudov, because he is a very risky fighter to take, Makhmudov. Yes, he is, a bit of a messy fighter, and yes, he's perhaps somebody who would elevate you onto a world level kind of scene quite well, but he is going to be a risky fighter to take, of course, just due to the amount of power in which he does carry and the way that he isn't hesitant, and the way that he has, like I say, had them tough tests, and the way that he is just going to put everything into the bombs in which he throws. He may have been able to get, a bigger name instead of fighting Makhmudov. So again, you kind of got to respect Dave for taking this test, but nonetheless, like I say, it is a test. Makhmudov has fought at the top, and I think, the mindset in which he seems to go into every big fight with Makhmudov is that he'll either KO you early or he'll lose via KO dramatically, if you can get through his power and if you can slow him down. I mean, the one fight in which he won and didn't go and didn't get a stoppage was against Carlos Takam, and even then he dropped him on multiple occasions, and that was just a very durable Carlos Takam on the night. And so again, Makhmudov, yes, has had his ups and downs in his career. He was promoted quite well by Top Rank and got himself to a good position, and then ended up coming up against Ajit Caballel, who of course he came unstuck against, and that was a performance in which has definitely aged well as a loss because of what we've seen Caballero go on to achieve since then, and the fact that Caballero is probably, not too far away from being kind of in line to fight Usyk, and if he was kind of matched up against Usyk at the moment, nobody would really bat an eyelid. So that's a win a defeat that definitely has aged well. And then in a bit more recent times, he went up against Guido Vianello, which was a loss in which was quite a bad defeat for Makhmudov. But again, it was a close fight, and that was a guy, Vianello, who'd also had a close fight against Jagba, and has gone on the road a little bit more since then, and is fighting Alexis Barriere in a fight in which might be a decider of whether or not he is a fully kind of journeyman type fighter, or if he's ever going to be able to stake any more of a claim for a title push, Vianello. So again, we'll have to kind of wait and see how that loss ages. But again, like I say, he has shown clear and obvious kind of weaknesses in his own game, which of course I'm sure Dave Allen and the team are wanting to exploit. To speak about a bit more about both fighters individually, Allen as a fighter, he's somebody who is pretty much going to, really kind of go off his own energy. And if he's up for the fight and he's feeling confident and he feels like he can get through you, then he's going to dig his feet into the canvas and really put all of it, everything into his shots and generate maximum power from really kind of pushing up into his shots. And that's what was able to get Johnny Fisher out there, in the first place. He was really able to generate a lot of power in the shots in which he was throwing, just like I say, by digging his feet into the canvas and, like I say, really pushing himself into them shots. He's got strong body shots himself. I mean, there's been wins in the past at a high level in which he's been able to, go out there against Lucas Brown. He was able to do that, but he was able to get a nice body shot there. And in the past, that has been a strong weapon of his. Of course, he's got a very good chin. I mean, he's fought some excellent opponents. I mean, Luis Ortiz at the time, he did get stopped by Ortiz, but he didn't go down. There's been plenty, Tony Yoka, who was pretty much on the juice. That was, he still didn't really go down off of that. And then, like I say, Dave Allen as well. Not Dave Allen, Johnny Fisher as well. And again, Fraser Clark, another name. Just these guys in which haven't been able to get Allen down. And so I think he does have a very good chin. So is Makhmudov going to be able to knock down or be able to stop Dave Allen? We will, of course, have to wait and see. But he's going to have to really, catch him with a nice shot to be able to drop him, I think. He is somebody who's going to try and put on continuous pressure when he's at his best. He's imposing his size and he won't be bullied. But again, that's when he's at his best. His mindset sometimes will allow him to be, backed up a little bit. He's got a high guard and he steps into his big shots nicely. He's able to find his way in. And for the most part, again, when he's at his best, he doesn't really seem to respect his opponents. But again, that is when his mindset is feeling strong. He doesn't really fall for feints, which I think is something in which helped him against Fisher, but I don't really think will help him against Makhmudov because Makhmudov doesn't really feint. He's got them experienced tactics where he can rough you up and still, find his openings and find his success from doing that. And of course, he does carry his own good level of power. Negatives about him: hand speed, defensive movement, head movement, not really taking backward steps, uh, is pretty ill-disciplined, like I've talked about, and can give up if things aren't really going his way. And I think he really has to be up for the fight. I think he is very much up for this fight, but I think he could, he's definitely a mindset type of fighter, which of course, every fighter is, but he can have doubts creep in, and I think them doubts could take over if he does get caught with a couple real clean shots from Makhmudov, because it could make him question, why am I here? Have that kind of imposter syndrome. And if that starts to happen, then we might see him fade throughout the fight. He is very wild swinging with his overhands. I mean, so is Makhmudov. This definitely isn't a technical heavyweight boxing display. I mean, I think at the moment, heavyweights, we're in a good stage of heavyweights where there's a lot of talent and a lot of talent coming through who are actual real kind of skillful fighters who can move well and box like a middleweight when they're actually a heavyweight. And like I say, there's a good crop of fighters like that coming through, whereas we're kind of moving away a bit more from just the heavyweights who are plodding forwards and trying to take your head off with shots, or just try and rough you up just standing right in front of you. Again, the elite guys aren't really like that anymore. You look at your Usyks, your Moses Talmas, your Joseph Parkers, your Ajit Caballels. Again, you would say that they're probably all not your stereotypical type of heavyweight who, like I say, is just going to stand in front of you like a somebody more like a Dillian Whyte or a Derek Chisora, or somebody kind of along them lines a bit more. But I think both of these fighters, like I say, aren't going to be the most technical of fighters. Dave Allen's flat-footed, slow-tempoed, can be outboxed and outmaneuvered, can be caught coming in, and does get caught quite often. His elbows stay kind of out to the side, so he is often open there to take uppercuts. But again, Makhmudov doesn't really throw too many uppercuts. He's made to follow, and often he's following and not throwing. When he fought Fraser Clark, that was a problem in which we saw with him. Often he was just, trying to walk down Fraser Clark, and then Fraser Clark would throw first, and then it would land a bit, and do enough to be able to stop Dave Allen from throwing. And again, if he's just trying to walk forwards and walk through Makhmudov, then it might be a bit of a difficult task to do, and he does struggle fighting at a mid-range, as he does kind of have a tendency to lunge in and forget his jab a bit at times. Makhmudov as a fighter, he's a fast starter. I mean, that's pretty obvious with just his record alone. He will come onto the front foot very quickly with a high pace and just get very physical. He's a very physically imposing fighter. He's got a good rangy jab when he uses it, and he is able to force you back, like I say, just kind of through pure physicality, really. He kind of aims low to go high for the most part, which is nice, but again, he is very predictable in what he's going to throw. He finds his range quickly. He only needs that one punch to really knock you out. I think Dave Allen has got that, but not as much, power as what Makhmudov has. He controls the center. He makes you fight his fight. Every shot comes with that power and intent, and most of the big shots in which he throws are chopping downward shots, similar to an extent as the big kind of overhand in which Dave Allen throws, but it's kind of always going to land nearabouts on the temple or the top of the head, which are basically, just two very vulnerable spots to get caught with a shot. And that's how he's often able to land with such intent and such power, just really chopping downwards into them shots. If you compare that to a shot like what Joseph Parker caught Martin Bacoli with, if you are landing on the temple, even if it's a shot in which is just kind of a little bit of a slice shot, it can really cause a lot of damage. And when you're deliberately chopping down to land a shot like that, again, it does, come with a lot of intent. You see Canelo try and throw that shot quite a lot as well. Not comparing Makhmudov to Canelo, but again, that's a shot in which I've seen him throw. Negatives about him: he's reckless, he comes in head first, he smothers his work, he stands straight on in front of you, can get timed coming in and rushing in. He can't get his timing down that well either. He falls over his front feet front foot and has messy footwork. He slows down, and if you can get past the first few rounds against him, then you definitely have a real opportunity to be able to, make the fight your fight and win a few rounds and have success. But again, you have to get past them first few rounds and still have that will to keep going. He's hard to get off. He's wild when throwing. He doesn't set up his shots. He has his head on the line. He doesn't really want to be fighting off the back foot, and he isn't very good at it. If he can be pushed back, then again, you pretty much have a big target there to land on. He will sit on the ropes, and he can be hurt and damaged to the body. Who do I think is going to win in this fight? I'm going to go with quite a big, bold, possibly controversial shout as to not what the fans are going to want to see. I'm going to go with an Arslanbek Makhmudov win via TKO in round 2. I think he is going to eventually stop Dave Allen. I don't know if it's going to be a Dave Allen, getting knocked out for the first time in his career properly, or if it's just going to be a Dave Allen taking a knee, or the corner coming in and throwing in the towel. Obviously, Makhmudov doesn't land clean a tremendous amount of the time. He does kind of waste a lot of shots and smother his work, but I think what he is going to land is really going to make Dave Allen question himself and question why is he in here, and just have that kind of doubts creeping in. And the more he gets caught with these big shots just always coming in early on, again, I think it's going to make Dave Allen vulnerable, and I think Dave Allen is going to be more willing to go on the back foot early on. And again, I just don't see that he's going to be able to get his punches down early on enough to be able to, gain the respect of Makhmudov. Maybe he might be able to time Makhmudov onto a big shot, but I think in the early rounds, that's his main hope. If he can get through the early rounds, then of course, then it's all his fight to win, but I just don't see him getting through them first few rounds. I think he is riding the high of the Johnny Fisher fight, and I think people are getting a little bit overexcited on the ability of Dave Allen. And, I would love to be proved wrong. I think Dave Allen's a great character for UK boxing and British boxing, and I would love to see him have a huge fight against somebody like a Deontay Wilder, but again, I just can't really see him get past this tough test. And then for Makhmudov, maybe he could get a rematch with Vianello if Vianello beats Barriere. If not, he could fight Barriere. If not, maybe a Richard Torres fight could be a good fight. I think he probably does have to have one more fight as the away fighter against another up-and-coming contender before he can get, talked about being in the kind of big world level type fights again. But a Richard Torres fight could be a good fight to do that, because Richard Torres isn't really the most skillful of up-and-coming contenders and will want a firefight. So again, that could be a good fight there to have. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did indeed like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.